People who won/inherited a lot of money. What are your horror stories from people begging for your money? Part 2. The Munich Station Sleeper. Back in the early 90s, I was backpacking through Europe with two friends. Money was tight, so when we found ourselves in Munich with an early train to catch, we decided to sleep at the Hauptbahnhof, the city's main train station. We picked a quiet spot on the upper concourse where a bunch of other travelers, maybe 20 or 30, were already asleep or settling in. It wasn't too bad, all things considered. Quiet, spacious, and dimly lit. My two friends passed out almost immediately. Couldn't sleep. Around the middle of the night, I heard shouting echoing up from the level below. I peeked over the railing and spotted this towering, disheveled guy. Must have been close to 2 meters tall, wandering around picking fights with random strangers. He looked like something out of a horror movie. Tattered clothes, long matted hair, and the weirdest part, a surgical neck brace with a big white plastic support behind his head. Someone had drawn this grotesque face on the back of it. Totally surreal. He kept yelling, lunging at people, just generally unhinged until a few German police officers finally showed up and escorted him out. I figured that was the end of it. I was wide awake by then, basically on alert. My friends? Still sleeping like babies. An hour or so later, I heard fast, heavy footsteps on the stairs. It was him, the same guy back again and now on our level. I stayed frozen. He didn't seem to notice me, just walked slowly around, stopping to lean down and examine some of the people sleeping. It was like he was choosing. Then he stopped, picked a random guy, shook him awake. As the guy groggily sat up, the tall man wound up and punched him square in the face. Hard. His nose just exploded. Blood everywhere. Chaos broke out. People were screaming. Police came sprinting up again and finally hauled the guy off. For good this time, I hoped. Paramedics arrived a few minutes later to tend to the poor guy with the shattered face. They treated him there and then took him away. And my friends? Still sound asleep. Didn't wake up for any of it. No one spoke to me afterward. Not the police, not anyone. Maybe they assumed I didn't speak German. All I know is what I saw, and I saw everything. When my friends finally did wake up, they didn't believe me at first, until I pointed out the dried pool of blood still staining the floor. I didn't sleep at all that night, not even for a second. The fairest division I've ever seen. I do estate valuations on the side, mostly for attorneys, sometimes for private clients. It's not my main gig, but I enjoy it. I usually charge a flat fee, about $500 for smaller jobs. I come in, walk through the house, make baseline valuations of personal property, nothing to do with the house itself, and I estimate what things might go for at auction. It helps families divide things up fairly, especially when emotions are running high. Anyway, I got called in on a job with two brothers. Pretty standard setup. As always, I gave them my usual opening speech. If anyone raises their voice or gets into an argument, I'm gone. And you still owe me the full fee. Keeps people civil most of the time. So, I show up with one of my assistants. The brothers were both there, one with his wife, the other with his girlfriend. Everyone was polite, cheerful even. They followed us as we walked through the place doing our evaluation, chatting and making small talk. Honestly, it felt more like a social visit than a business call. When we were done, they told me they'd already divided the property between themselves before we even arrived. They just wanted me to double-check if what they'd done was fair. Salvation Army was scheduled to come by the next day and take whatever was left. So I took a look at their lists. Each of them had taken only the items the other didn't want. There was no overlap, no contention. According to my estimates, their divisions were equal down to the dollar except for one being $10 higher. Without missing a beat, the brother with the extra value pulled out his wallet and handed the other two fives. His brother laughed and said, "I owe you $5 from lunch last week," and handed one of them back. Then they looked at me and said, "This was worth $500 just to be sure everything was even, so we don't fight about it later." It really struck me. I've seen families go to war over far less. But these guys, they cared more about staying brothers than winning. A couple of weeks later, one of them called and asked if I'd ever cashed their check. I hadn't. I told him I tore it up. They didn't argue. Instead, they donated the money to the Wind River Tribal Youth Program. I haven't thought about that story in years. But every now and then, it reminds me that not all estate work ends in bitterness. Sometimes it brings out the best in people. She left it to me and now everyone's angry. I'm dealing with this mess right now and honestly, it sucks. My great-aunt, who was also my godmother, was a lesbian. Her partner, my Auntie Kitty, had been with her since the 1950s, back when my godmother moved to New York. Auntie Kitty had been disowned by her own family when they found out she was with a woman. My godmother passed away when I was 12, and she left everything she had to Auntie Kitty. That stirred up some tension with my dad's side of the family, though my dad and one of his brothers still stayed in touch with her. When I turned 18, I moved to New York for school. I didn't really know anyone in the city, so naturally, I reached out to Auntie Kitty. We got close. She was thrilled I wanted a relationship with her. She didn't hesitate to treat me like family, like I was her own niece. And to me, she was my aunt. No question about it. She was amazing. Kind, sharp, warm, funny. Just the kind of person who made a room feel better. We spent holidays together. She came to events I worked on. She met my friends and I met hers. She was like another grandmother to me, and I spent nearly a decade with her in my life like that. She passed away a few months ago. It hurts. I miss her deeply, but she was in her 90s. She lived a long, full life. What I didn't expect was what came after. She left everything to me. I knew she had money. She didn't exactly hide it, but I had no idea how much. I ended up with a substantial amount of cash and investments, a brownstone in the city, and a beach house in the Carolinas. And then, suddenly everyone cared. Her family, people who hadn't spoken to her in decades or ever really, came out of the woodwork, asking about money, demanding the beach house, saying they're sure she wanted them to have something. The will says otherwise very clearly. It says I get everything and they get nothing. But they're threatening to sue anyway, saying she must have changed her mind and just never got around to updating her will. She had years to change her mind. She didn't. Then there's my dad's side of the family. My aunts and uncles are furious that they weren't left anything. Their logic is that they sent her Christmas cards sometimes, so they deserve a share. Meanwhile, none of them came to her funeral. None of them visited her in years. They didn't call, didn't write, nothing. But now they feel entitled to something. One of my aunts even started harassing my boyfriend, accusing him of being with me just for the money. Never mind the fact that he knew Auntie Kitty. He helped me plan her funeral. He supported me through all of it while she was sick. He had more of a relationship with her than most of my so-called relatives. So yeah, it's a mess. I miss her. I miss the peace that came with her. I'd give anything to just sit with her one more time. But instead, I'm fighting off people who didn't care until there was something to gain. She chose to leave it all to me, and I'm trying to honor that. I just wish everyone else could accept it. She wasn't even in the ground yet. Just before my mom passed, my current nightmare began. She was an alcoholic for most of my life, and last May, she died from liver failure. After her death, we started the legal process to open her estate here in Pennsylvania. I needed to handle her finances and get the deed to her house transferred to my name. But the moment my information was registered with the state, it was like blood in the water. Realtors started swarming. Out of nowhere, I was getting non-stop phone calls, letters, some of them hand-delivered, and even strangers showing up at the door. One guy refused to leave until we called the police. It wasn't just one or two people either. It was a constant stream. They all wanted the same thing, to sell her house. Thankfully, I had a really solid estate attorney. Anytime someone pushed too far, he'd slap them with cease and desist letters and follow up with the police if they didn't back off. Honestly, I don't know what I would have done without him. My mom's house is a townhouse in a very, very desirable neighborhood. It's the kind of place that practically sells itself. I get that, but I was still shocked at just how aggressive and relentless these realtors were. Even now, months later, there are still two who occasionally stop by, leave a business card, and walk away. Like clockwork. I've taped a sign to the front door that says, loud and clear, "We are not selling. Doesn't matter." They keep coming anyway. I haven't even had time to properly grieve. It's like the second she was gone, her death just became a property opportunity for everyone else. No one saw a woman who died too young, or a family trying to sort through their pain. All they saw was a house, a sale, a check. It's exhausting, and it's not over yet. Waiting for the storm. I have a feeling I'm going to have one of these stories of my own pretty soon. My grandma is 90 years old, living in a nursing home. She only has a couple of clear-headed hours each week, if that. My aunt visits her every day. My mom goes once or twice a week. Then recently, my aunt took my grandma to her house. When they got there, she had a lawyer waiting. That same day, she had my grandma sign a brand new will. The old one split everything evenly 50/50ths. We don't know what the new one says. When my mom asked to see the will, my aunt flipped. Like full-on rage. Told my mom she never wanted to speak to her again. Thing is, my grandma doesn't even remember signing anything. She doesn't know what a will is anymore. She's not capable of making those kinds of decisions now, and anyone around her can see that. And we're not talking about a couple $100. There's a decent chunk of money involved. Hundreds of thousands, easily. What makes it even weirder is that my aunt has never needed the money. Growing up, she was always the rich one in the family. Nice house, fancy clothes, vacations. Why she'd blow up her relationship with her sister over this is beyond me. At this point, I'm honestly hoping the money just gets eaten up by medical bills. Better that than watching my family fall apart over it. She took it because she could. My aunt stole a large amount of money from me, and I never saw it coming. When I turned 18, I was supposed to receive a check for 18 years of per capita payments, with interest. A few months before that birthday, my aunt quit her job and started working at a small local credit union with only a handful of branches. She asked me to move my accounts there to help her hit her quotas. Said she'd make them joint accounts so I could still get all the perks. She was family. I trusted her. Fast forward 10 months, and she's remodeling her house and hitting the bars most nights. I thought she must have landed a better job or gotten a big bonus. I didn't ask questions. She was my aunt, and she seemed to be doing well. Then I decided to switch banks because I was moving across the country. That's when she told me straight up. She had already withdrawn all the money, and because the accounts were joint, there was nothing I could do about it. First, she claimed it was what my mom would have wanted. Then, when that didn't hold up, she said she deserved it more than me. Eventually, she stopped pretending, said it was hers now because technically it was legal. I tried to go to her employer for help. Didn't matter. She'd already told her boss that I was trying to destroy her life. They shut me down. In the end, I got about 60% of it back through a settlement. But the damage she caused didn't stop with the money. She torched every bridge she could in our family. Anyone who even asked what happened got cut off. She threatened to stop speaking to people if they brought me up at all. Even our grandmother got dragged into it. She was helping with childcare for my aunt's kids. My aunt told her she'd rather pay for a sitter than listen to her talk about me. So my grandma had to stay silent. Afraid that if she spoke up, she'd lose her daughter, her grandkids, and me all at once. It was a total blindside. She didn't just take money. She took trust, family, and peace all because she could. The jackpot that brought out the leeches. About 25 years ago, my parents hit a once-in-a-lifetime jackpot at a casino, around $10,000. Nothing insane, but for a family like ours, it was a big deal. We were poor growing up, and that money helped cover bills and gave us a summer full of memories we normally couldn't afford. But what should have been a rare stroke of luck turned into a nightmare. My mom's relatives had invited my parents on that casino trip. They were the ones who drove, too. So, when my folks won, they came out of the woodwork demanding a cut. Their logic. Since they invited them and provided the ride, they were owed a piece of the winnings. It was absurd. But they were relentless. Then my aunt jumped in. She didn't try to argue that she was owed anything. She just begged. Said she needed money to cover her kids' debts. The thing is, her kids were spoiled beyond belief and constantly dug themselves into holes. And she always bailed them out. My parents stood firm. They didn't give anyone a dime. Even after threats of lawsuits, which never actually happened, they held their ground. Eventually, my aunt gave up and the others backed off, but not before doing some serious damage. From that point on, no one on my mom's side would go to a casino with my parents unless they made it crystal clear up front that if anyone won, the winnings would be shared. Safe to say, my parents stopped gambling with them altogether. For a while, they just went alone. What really sticks with me, even more than the fights, was realizing later in life that these people, my mom's relatives, weren't hurting for money. Most of them were making close to 6 figures. They didn't need that jackpot. They just wanted it. They felt entitled to it. I was a kid then, and I didn't understand much about money or family politics. I just remember how excited we were for once, and how fast that joy got poisoned by greed. The family leech. I've been lucky in one big way. My dad's side of the family is financially secure. When my grandparents passed, they locked everything into trust funds. After my father died, I took control of his portion. That's when my uncle, the family disaster, started crawling back in. He's a complete mess. A lifelong burnout who sells weed, smokes constantly, bounces in and out of jail, never held a steady job, and leaned hard on everyone around him. My grandmother always bailed him out, and my dad, despite being sick for years, still tried to support him out of some deep-rooted loyalty. Well, I'm not my dad. As soon as I took control of my inheritance, I pulled my share from the family's hands and moved it into my own trust. I didn't trust any of them with money, and I knew exactly how this would play out. Sure enough, my uncle's been calling me every month from jail, always asking for something: money for lawyers, money for commissary, money for some new excuse. He has other siblings who are still alive, but he zeroed in on me. Says I should help because I'm family, because I'm doing well and he's not. I'm 3 times younger than him. I've worked for what I have. I owe him nothing. He wasted his entire life and leeched off my father until the day he died. I feel absolutely no guilt shutting him out. If anything, I'm relieved he's pestering me and not my mother. She's been through enough. And before anyone jumps in with, "Why don't you just change your number?" he's calling my work line. Changing that number would mean changing business cards, directories, client contact lists, the whole deal. Not worth the headache. Instead, I had the jail remove me from his approved call list. Now when the phone rings, I know he's out, which is useful in its own way. This isn't the worst thing I've been through, but it's the kind of slow drip poison you get from toxic family. I'm handling it just fine. The farm that broke us. My grandparents had a humble life. They owned a small family business and a little farm. Nothing fancy, just a few cows, chickens, and an old house that had seen better days. My Uncle T helped them run it all. Grandpa handled the animals. T managed the shop, and together they kept it going for decades. Most of my aunts and uncles had lived on that land when I was a kid, but over time, one by one, they all moved away. Everyone except T. When my grandmother passed, I was still a child. Grandpa hung on for a while, but he died 3 years ago. When his will was read, it turned out he left everything to Uncle T, the farm, the land, the business, the beat-up cars out back. Everything. And that didn't sit well with the rest of the family. They all knew Grandpa didn't have a fortune stashed away, but they still expected something. They said it wasn't fair. They wanted T to sell the property and split whatever money came from it among all the siblings. But the truth is, none of them had lifted a finger to help run the place in years. T had spent his whole life working that land and running that business with Grandpa. Selling it meant giving up his home and his livelihood, and for what? So everyone else could walk away with a check? T said no. He couldn't do it. That farm wasn't just a job. It was his entire life. And that decision shattered the family. People stopped calling. Holidays got quiet. The big family that used to laugh together every weekend on that land, it just fell apart. The worst part is, it wasn't even about wealth, it was about pride, about hurt feelings, about people thinking they were owed something because it was their childhood home. But to T, it's more than just a memory. It's where he still lives, where he still works. And now he does it alone. It breaks my heart. That farm used to be the center of everything good in my childhood. Now it's a reminder of how money, and even the idea of money, can tear people apart. Someone I used to be good friends with was the only one to help take care of his grouchy old grandfather, who basically lived in a shack in Mississippi. I would like to note, because it's relevant, that this friend was very liberal and the only one in his family to support things like gay marriage. His grandfather never really commented on it, but everyone else was obsessed with the gays and how they were ruining this country. They were also all very nasty to my friend for being liberal. They hated him. So Grandpa dies. In a shocking surprise to everyone, he had apparently saved up tons of money over the years. Not millions, but high six figures. And he left it all, every penny, to my friend. Suddenly everyone comes out of the woodwork wanting money. They took my friend to court over it. Well, he won. He got to keep all the money. Know what he did with it? Donated all of it to organizations supporting gay rights. In his relatives' names.